Thank you. Hi everyone, I'm Angela, and today I want to tell my speech through my stories. So when I first came to China, as some of you may know, I did not come to Odays. The beginning of my journey at QD was delayed by quarantine at the time, which seemed like forever ago, right? And the few days I spent at home, my fear fermented, conjecturing about how I can assimilate into this new environment and this new culture. Sometimes I feel my fear was valid because apparently before I came, a lot of people thought I was a white girl because I was from abroad. And that bothered me. I don't know why it did, but it sure did. And it took me a long time to stop feeling different, to really shed that layer of uncomfortable difference. Now, the most common question I got during the first few months at QD was, what's the difference between Canada and China? I didn't have a lot to comment on at the time, and honestly that's still the case because the answer is everything. Everything is different. But after a year and a half of exploring, I can confidently say that I'm the most different. And as this is my story, I will tell it from my perspective. And so a little bit about Canada first. It's an immigrant country, and the demographic of Canada itself is a rich tapestry of different cultures and different ethnicities. And having spent so much time in Canada, it has really led me to open up, immersing myself in different cultures, in this cultural mosaic. And as I navigated and traversed through this medley, I was able to reach one conclusion, which is to stay unprejudiced, to stay non-partisan, to accept that there are cultures and perspectives that I might not yet understand. The world is not simply black, it's not simply white. And in fact, majority of the world is a shade of gray, where dilemmas and ideals linger. So this is where the story begins. At the end of grade 5 and all around middle school, I went to church almost Friday nights and Sunday mornings. But a disclaimer, I'm an atheist and I'm not religious. However, I did spend a lot of time at church. And I remember during those days, I would stand at the back of the church and, well, to be closest to the door so I can get to the ball pit or the dining hall the quickest. But I remember watching. I remember watching as the crowd emerged into the nave. I remember watching as the first ray of morning light dawned on the black leather cover of the Bible. And I would secretly sneak a peek during those times. And I would see this sense of tranquility and gratitude surface on people's faces under the biblical tunes or the pastor's calming voice. Not everyone gets this look, but when they do, I could clearly tell. And during those times, I asked myself, why do people come to church? I mean, people come to church with all kinds of emotions, whether it be anger, hope, joy, grief. To be honest, I think a good number of people don't even know why they're going to church or what they're left with. But from my perspective, I think people go to church for the community, for the inclusivity, so they could get a brief moment of complacency and to really get away from their trite problems in a sanctuary. I mean, that's how it was for me. However, despite spending all those years at church and really interacting with the core members there, I couldn't grasp the essence of it. And as I grew up, I slowly stopped my regular attendance at the church. However, I remember one Saturday morning, as I was biking past by that familiar old building again, I saw a woman crying on the steps leading up to those heavy double wooden doors. I stopped, and I was concerned because I was almost afraid that she had collapsed for a second. But no, she was just sitting there and she was sobbing. Her tears were glistening against the stained glass windows, and she seemed just so tiny against the towering spires thrusting into the sky. And I watched because I was concerned. And I watched as she closed her eyes and words started mumbling out of her mouth. Then, before I knew it, she stood up, walked to her car, and drove away. Someone who I thought had crumbled into pieces had just pulled herself back up together. That prompted me to ask, why do people believe? Why do people pray, or why do people thank God for food before every meal? Well, I used to think that it's because they praise God or they pray because then they can be on good terms with Him, almost like they can call in on a favor when they need one. But after years of observation, I knew that, in fact, it was not true. To me, despite being an atheist, I think religion is about faith, like many other things in life. I think faith is an inner strength. So why do people have faith? Even though there are so many things out of our control in this world, and even if you have faith, there's no guarantee, there's no definite outcome or answer, but having faith gives people strength. I think having faith, then even when all things fail, even when things fall apart, there's something you can believe in and something you can hold on to. Faith for me is an anchor. It's something that holds people, something that holds me together. It's an inner power and inner drive. And I see this faith in other places as well. For example, in Islamic culture during Ramadan, which is the holiest month in their culture, and people have to abstain from food and drink during daylight for a whole month. I also see this faith arise. And it's these pieces of multifarious cultures that are weaved into my experiences growing up. And I have to say, if my life was an art, it would be a multi piece with church groups, Eid fasting, culture days, and indigenous workshops, all against a backdrop of my Chinese family and culture, tied together by the string of faith. So that was my life before coming to China. And I think it has really cleaved a gray area for faith between the absolute black and white. I think it has made space for understanding and respect towards cultures and perspectives that are distant from my own. Furthermore, it hatched an explorative and flexible mindset, which reminds me of a book that I was reading while I was on my plane ride over to China. It's Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. So this book is kind of like Trevor's memoir. He talks about his childhood experiences growing up during apartheid and post-apartheid in South Africa. And he is exploring his identity, and he struggles to find a sense of belonging as a mixed child during those times. And I feel at times I can relate to him. So like many other grade 10s, after coming to China, I really enjoy my time just laying on the pitch, chilling and thinking. And it's during those days, as the 4 o'clock sun would settle on my skin, I thought about Trevor Noah. And as a breeze brushed up against my cheek, I thought about that woman who seemed so fragile, yet was able to pull herself back up together in an instant. And I thought about faith, and I thought about serenity. So I think we're confined in a relatively small campus. We're restrained by the electric wires and kept in check by all the rules. Yet our dreams and our passions extend to places so unknown and distant. I think it's because everyone has their own inner faith, something that drives us to keep going, something that drives us forward. And I know faith is not simply religious because I observe faith all around me. For instance, second semester last year, I had the opportunity to assist in teaching rural and underprivileged kids English. And during winter break this year, I was able to do an internship at an endodontics office at the local hospital. And on both of these occasions, I was able to interact with people who had completely different circumstances than me. People who were sick, people who were distressed, people who did not grow up with the same conditions I did. And it's during these times that I see something in common. It's during those times that the idea of faith returned to me once again. And it's during those times that I had an urge to do something meaningful for these people. I think people all around me, everyone around me, has this sense of inner strength, and their motivation shines through their tenacity. When I first came, my route of faith was unclear. I lingered in the gray area sometimes. But looking around me, seeing my roommates, my friends, my classmates, and remembering all the children, the patients and their families, seeing the efforts they have devoted into their distinctive futures and their presence has inspired me over and over again. Even in limited spaces, under limited circumstances, I see how people's passion can shine through even the most dull and mundane work. And I think passion is all around me. Faith is all around me. I see how people's faith arises all the time. And which is what prompts me to want to maximize my high school experience by seeing the world through my own lens of faith and passion. At the end of the day, I'm grateful for the move to China, and I believe the string of faith will pull me to my better ends. Thank you.